Welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. And basketball is blazing, right? And when I say blazing, I mean the heat because these guys, the Texas Tech Raiders, went out and had a game in the state of Arizona. And Jeremy can co-sign that it is hot in that state. And I'm not just talking about balls in the basket. And then we brought Arizona to Lubbock where the it was hot, and I am talking about balls in the basket. It was both teams couldn't miss at one point. So to talk about this week in hoops playing the Arizona schools, you got to start off with the People's Champ himself, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, Albie? This was the big one after the win at Houston, right? We had the Baylor game where it was a question of can we overcome the superstar hangover of the win in Houston, snapping that long 33 game win streak or whatever it was, home winning streak that they had, all the attention, all the applause. Could we survive Baylor? And then we did, right? We took care of business. And then it was, can we maintain success, right? And so having Arizona in Tucson, if you got that game, you were gonna really start to have people talking about national contender Texas Tech, and there's still some people kind of on the fringe of that, but we've learned a lot about this Texas Tech team from the great state of Arizona in the past week, I guess, and it's. I never really thought I could give this much consideration to the state of Arizona in my life, honestly, but basketball and them coming into the Big 12 has really ruined it for me. The whole Saguero thing. I did give shout outs. I remember that Mexican restaurant, El Charo. I remember you. It was good food. Albie and I had some good food. Yeah, but Arizona, here we are.
So we shall overcome. You don't say that on Black History Month? That's crazy. Anyways, also on the podcast to talk about this slate over Arizona, we got the rhetoric expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
I don't know how I follow that up, to be completely honest. Yeah, just the last couple weeks here, the last couple of games here for this basketball team have been a lot of emotions, a lot of checking that pulse and checking that heartbeat, because it's going to pull about every or tug on every feeling that you have, good, bad, and the other. But yeah, able to survive, the backup game after the Houston, and able to take your act on the road, take a winning streak on the road, and then get bullied there in Tucson. I mean, we'll talk about that in brief here shortly, but call it for what it is. We got bullied there in Tucson. And then to come back and, to kind of have a bounce back game against Arizona, but where, just it seemed like every shot was going in from every which corner of the court here in Lubbock. But, we're able to survive that. And, you're still in a prime position with the schedule remaining to, make a push for the Big 12. So I guess you take what you could get, for where you're at in the standings right now. But, a lot you could work on. So let's see what happens the next couple of games before Houston comes into town and see if we could take care of some more business.
So let's start off by talking about the bullied game, in a game where Grant McCasland called the other team a tougher team and said the tougher team did win today, and it was not Texas Tech. And so I'm talking about them going into Tucson, Arizona. Now, Arizona is their first year in the Big 12. I do have a quick question for you after watching this game. I'm not going to, we're all Tech fans. I'm not going to bring Tech into it. Does Arizona have the best home court advantage in the conference, not including Tech? You don't think so?
I think Hilton.
Kansas, obviously, and there's Iowa State. Those are the contenders. But I mean, Arizona. I'll say this. I'm not going to hate on Kansas. Kansas is Kansas, so that's But I would argue it might be Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State. Like that home court advantage was something serious.
I would say it's overrated or underrated considering all the other teams in the Big 12. I mean, McHale is McHale. The student section doesn't ever sit down. I mean, so. It's a wild atmosphere that I've been in that gym before. I mean, it's all kind of like in your face, like you would see at Duke or at Cameron Indoor or somewhere like, North Carolina, everybody's just like right there. So I would say it's, it's up there with Hilton, the Allen Fieldhouse, all of those places.
Yeah. Jeremy, thoughts from especially watching this game? I mean, it's one of those times when it really sucks to play Arizona on a Saturday. I know we've talked about on this podcast, like Saturday home court advantages are different than midweek. And you saw that difference in Tucson.
Yeah, man. Zona Zoo. And it was. And learning about, we had some Arizona fans comment on the last video, Joe and I previewing the game. And we called it a close game. But they were like, it'd be interesting to hear how you guys feel after the game now and like the atmosphere. And I think you guys kind of underestimated. And I certainly did. I certainly did because guess what? I ain't never seen y'all play basketball before. Not on my radar. Again, this year is the first year I've ever had to really care about Arizona.
Arizona basketball has not been on your radar?
I never watched a game. Like I've never watched a game of them outside of the tournament. I've never been like, let me go watch Arizona playing, whoever, USC. Let me watch that game. I'm like, no, they're probably going to beat them. But getting to see it like in the full, in the full extension of the game, that's wild, man. That gym was insane from the get-go and all the way through. So yeah, I'd say they're a top atmosphere. I have a hard time ranking because when you like rank, it's so year to year. But like in terms of just on average, like they are a top. I don't want to play. If I'm a basketball player, I don't want to play in McHale on a Saturday. That's for sure.
So just no love for Mike Bibby or Richard Jefferson. You were like Aaron Gordon. Ugh, gross. I don't want to watch you play Andre Iguodala.
There's only so many hours in the day, and I can't give them to Arizona. So
get out of here, Damon Stoudemire. Who are you, Steve Kerr? I actually forgot Steve Kerr played at Arizona. I was looking at some other guys. But anyways, so as we kind of get in this game, I do think from the on and so I'll say this, and I was on the last podcast as y'all were having oodles of fun, but this was definitely a game that beginning of the year I said it's going to be a tough game to win. Even leading up to this, even as Tech kind of is now on a hot start, as we're in our hot start of conference play, Arizona's on the same thing. Remember, Arizona had a really tough stretch start to the season, but conference play wise, they really started to get it going. Very similar seasons, I would argue, between Tech and Arizona. And so coming into that game, I very much was like, Saturday in Tucson is going to be tough. And we're going to see what they do. And Arizona really early on kind of smacked Tech in the mouth a little bit. Had an 8 to 10 point or 8 to 9 point lead early in that throughout the first half. Kind of kept us at arm's reach. Every time we would hit a big shot, they would hit a bigger shot. Right? The crowd really stayed in it, really all game, but definitely early in that first half, up until Tech started to bite away. Right? We got to a point where it was only a 1 point game right before halftime. And then you're looking at halftime where it's only a 2 point game. Joe, I mean, what were your thoughts after really getting, like you mentioned before, beat up a lot of the first half where it looked like Arizona was the better team? And then despite the fact that you have a whole half where you're like, man, we're getting whooped. And then you blink, it's halftime. You're like, damn, how are we only down 2?
Just weathering the storm, just they've faced adversity over the course of the season, most notably in Houston, all the chips stacked against you and you go into a very hostile environment and find a way to win. I think this was just, goes to show you the culture that Coach McCaslin has built here, just that toughest team mentality, even though at some points at the start of this game, it looked like they were, the tougher team on the court here, but you just got to give it up to the players, for fighting back and staying in this game whenever at some points in this game, it looked like they were going to run away with it. So 2 points down at half, you live with it, especially on the road at a late tip-off time. And you like your chances a little bit after that, given the circumstances of, all the adjustments that McCaslin and his staff makes. So for me personally, I think you're in a good spot, but, tides turned in the second half, and they just kept on out toughing us for sure.
Well, I'll say this: is in that middle stretch where we made it a game, it was made a game because of really two people: JT Toppin, Christian Anderson. Those two guys really were like, "I'm tired of this stuff. Tired of this, Grandpa." Those two guys were like, "We got to make some baskets and get back in the game." And they were really the ones, even before half and right after half, really keeping this game close. Jeremy, what do you have to say about really those two and the way they were able to play in this game?
They were the lifeline, like having the ability of Toppin really being the only guy to challenge into the basket, and Christian Anderson just continuing to stay fearless in the face of adversity. Doesn't seem like that guy cares who they're playing, what the atmosphere is like. Christian Anderson is just always locked in. And sometimes that shows on the stat sheet, but like just constantly high motor, high energy, high buy-in to McCaslin's kind of game plan. And so, like I said, I mean, we got to a point middle of the first. I was like, no, we're cooked, buddy. This is over. The fans were having it. Arizona came out so powerfully. And I just like, weathering this storm is more like sitting in the middle of a tsunami, not expecting to drown. So I was just like, let's try to make this a game. But of course, Toppin and Anderson did just that. Now, we still got out-rebounded by too significant of a margin to ignore. And that's on everybody else, too. Because, like, I felt like from the get-go, we had no energy to create plays, especially around the basket. Rebounding was non-existent. It felt like people were – it did not look like Texas Tech basketball. We were standing around watching. Nobody was in motion. Like, there was just so much about this game that felt off, that there are a lot of games where we're playing and we're down, and I'm like, you know what? We're playing really well. Things just going to start falling. But this game was like, I do not see any feasible traction for us getting close and winning this game. Like, I just don't see it because they're not in it. Like, whatever they ate the night before, it was messing with them. I was like this close to tweeting, I'm waiting to hear about the flu epidemic that was breaking out on the team, some excuse, some help. But no, and at that half, you're still 39-35, which was a lot more impressive than it should have been.
Y'all remember Ben Middlebrooks in the NCAA tournament game last year when we played NC State, and we were like, who the F is this backup forward that's getting all these putbacks and getting all these rebounds, and what the hell's going on here? I had Ben Middlebrooks flashbacks watching Henry Visar, right? Where I'm like, what the hell? This guy is putting he played 30 minutes in this game, which wouldn't surprise me if that's a season high, right? And I'm not saying Visar is some scrub. He's one of their key bench guys, but he's not a guy that plays 30 minutes, right? I think he averages like 16. But he put up 15 points and 8 rebounds in this game. He's a big reason why they dominated on the glass. I mean, it felt like every loose board that was there was in Visar's hands. Toby Awaka and JT Toppin were really fighting it out, but JT Toppin was really the only one fighting it out. And it's really hard to win a game when you have three cardio guys. And if you don't know what I mean by cardio guys, I mean guys that are just out there getting cardio, right? Infamously on Twitter, there's the Tony Snell meme where it's 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, but he played for 30 minutes, right? We had 3 of those guys in this game. Kerwin Walton, Federico, K2, and Kevin and KO. KO, K-Dub, and F2. It's if you got one of those type of nicknames, don't just stay in the locker room. They might as well stay in the locker room. All 3 of those guys had a combined 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. Federico, it seemed like he was just in this game just to get fouls. So he was like, yeah, I'm just here for one thing and one thing only. I'm here to foul you, my guy. And he kept fouling the wrong person because he kept fouling Caleb Love every time Caleb Love came to the paint. Right. Caleb Love, who was having a really bad shooting day too. Right. Let him shoot. He's off. He's 1 for 6 in the game from 3. Let him shoot. Instead, Caleb Love was like, well, I can always just drive on this big galoof, and he gonna foul me. And that's what was happening, right? Fed was just in foul trouble the whole game, and then KO is probably the most inconsistent player on this team. Some games he looks incredible. Some games he's out there getting cardio, right? Actually, no, screw this. I am going to talk about Kerwin Walton. I'm going to talk about Kerwin Walton because every time in the chat I talk about him, he has a great game. I'm talking mess about Kerwin Walton. I say I'm tired of him just going out there and doing nothing for us. And then he drops 12, drops 4 threes or whatever. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to shut the hell up. So you know what? I'm going to talk about you right now, Kerwin. I know you're a friend of the pod. I know you listen to our podcast each time. You know what? I'm tired of you. And so that's just going to make up for the next game, just right there. So, but as we kind of continue this game here, you kind of alluded to it there, Joe. Game was tight early on, but about 5 minutes into the second half, Arizona kind of blew the doors off, right? They were able to get into a double-digit lead. Again, keeping us at arm's length. Every time we thought maybe we're getting somewhere, they would punch us in the face once again. And really that dagger was Bradley getting to the line again. I think he was also fouled by Fed, if I'm not mistaken. That was Fed's 4th foul. And making it a 10-point game with 2 minutes to go. And it was just, that's when, it's like, well, time to pack it up here. So, Jeremy, what were your thoughts on the overall game?
Henry Vasar, if he just disappears into anonymity after this, like, I'll be okay with that, honestly. Because I think what he took that first game, because Toppin and Federico both bullied him the whole game. I think he kind of took that personally, right? So this game, he looks absolutely insane, though. Anytime they switch to him on camera, he looks absolutely, he's where's he from? God, it's one of those Eastern.
I don't know. This is your people. Okay.
No, that thing, not my people. Anyways, he's from one of those Eastern Bloc countries. Not a lot of sunshine, too many potatoes. And so, but he was insane, man. And all credit to Arizona's game plan was like, you know what? This guy's feeling it. Run it. So this game was disappointing on multiple levels for me because you actually won important measurables in terms of like you created more turnovers, that you had less than 10 turnovers, which at this point in the season, if we're under 10, I'm feeling like that's a success because sometimes we'd be passing that thing with no regard. Keeping them to about 30 from 3, and then the 50 from the field was tough, but a lot of that was just layups. A lot of that was like just right there under the basket, and that was really frustrating. But the thing that ruined this game was just the zero effort, no rebound domination, no bully ball, no attempt at, top in some games he can look bigger than he is. And then other games, it's like in this one against Arizona, like Vasar bullied him the whole time. He could not create any space. He could not back him down. There was no ability to create position. And so it made me feel like our team was really small, metaphorically, especially like that we couldn't impose will at all. Right. And that compounded by really not having, a great shooting night compared to our average. So yeah, it was disappointing as this one went on. And also because it was so late. By the time we got about, like you said, when they started taking off and, kind of after like 10 minutes into about halfway through the second half, I was like, do I really want to stay up for this? Do I really want to stay up for the end of this one? I did, but I wish I had gone to bed when I had that thought. And that was just the theme of this game. Like Arizona had our number. They were not going to be swept, and they made sure of that.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good point you made about the shooting. Tech actually shot decently from 3 in this game, shooting about they shot okay, shooting about 36%. But it's weird when you're shooting okay from 3, but you can't make a bucket inside. We missed so many gimmies in this game, and Joe, you mentioned it being getting bullied. A lot of this D5 couldn't find a basket, second guessing himself a lot, trying to do that pump fake action, and then just getting rejected a couple times, not really having that touch around the rim. Hawkins really struggled in this game as he was driving to the lane. McMillie also same thing. So it's not great when you shoot 36 from 3, 36% from three, and 37% period. Right? That's not how it is. I will say a little bit of foreshadowing as we talk about that, but that's usually not a really good sign when it comes to that. There, Joe, your overall thoughts of this game?
I think it was just a carbon copy game of Texas Tech versus Arizona and Lubbock. It's just that the roles were reversed. If you look at it, we out rebounded them, bullied them down in the post, had second chance points, all of that. Great. It wasn't a great shooting night, but we were able to do that and sustain a lead, and ultimately run them off the court by 16. Now you flip it over to going to Tucson, and essentially they do the exact same thing to us. We have 10 turnovers on that game, something that you could be proud of in a Big 12 basketball game on the road, especially in a very hostile environment. But you just got beat up down low. You ran essentially 8 guys out there, but you only really played 5 for the entire game. And you're not going to win ball games like that. It's just, you're not. They out rebounded us. They out hustled us. All the little things in a basketball game that you would think, would put you over the top, they did right. But hats off to them. You can't discredit what they did to us. And then you mix that with not a great shooting night, and then that's the outcome you're going to get 9 times out of 10. So, it was just, like I said, like a carbon copy game of what we did to them in Lubbock, they did to us in Tucson. So a lot of the things that, you wish you could do right, we didn't do right. And, for what it's worth, it looks like some of those things got corrected. But, this game itself was the first game this year where I felt that we got beat up from the start to finish. Just overall. Yeah,
it's never great when you have 5 less turnovers, yet still have less points off turnovers. Yeah, definitely not a good thing there. So like you mentioned, Arizona just beat us up. We were talking about this pre-pod, whether this is the worst loss of the season. I do think this is the first game where it didn't feel like the win was at hand. It really, especially as we came towards the end there, right? This is our 5th loss of the season. The other 4 losses, for the most part, with a minute to go in the game, you're right there, right? And that includes St. Joe's, UCF, A&M, and I know I'm missing one.
Iowa State.
Iowa State, right? Oh, Iowa State. Golly, I've been trying to block that out of my memory. That's the reason why I'm missing that one. But yeah, all the other ones, you're right there in the grasp. Joe, you made a great point though with UCF, and that they actually had us at arm's length for a lot of that game. We made it come back to make it close at the end to give us a shot. But this was a game with 2 minutes to go. Shot wasn't there. We didn't have an opportunity to win this game. Still a very good team. Again, like I mentioned before, Arizona's a team that's really clicking at the right time. They're in the Big 12 championship hunt. With us, with Houston, whose only loss in conference play is to Tech, and with Iowa State. I think those really are the 4 teams in the running for the Big 12 championship as of right now, and in that order of Houston, Arizona, Texas Tech, Iowa State. So will be interesting to see how it plays out. But this is unlike UCF and unlike St. Joe's. This is a loss that sucks. It stings, but it's respectable. Didn't even affect us in the rankings. Actually, we lost that game and went up a spot in the AP poll. The voters were like, you lost in Tucson. It happens to everybody. So yeah. And you know what else happens to everybody? Looking good. We all want to look good. And if you want to look good, you got to go to Charlie Hustle, right? So charliehustle.com, they want you to be the best dressed fan this season. And new promo code alert. You got to use our promo code 1012network to get that 15% off of all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle's been working with us because they know we're the 3 swag daddies of the Big 12. So because of that, they've been working with us to make sure to get you some nice stuff, and so you can join some of the great vintage wear that they have at that site. A couple things coming up here on the site at Charlie Hustle. There is a President's Day weekend sale that the second this episode drops, it'll be live. Go to charliehustle.com and get something from that sale. Next weekend, there's a fleece sale at charliehustle.com. And then next month, we do have Texas Day. So, I know my kids, they got to go to school in boots. I always joke that Houston forgets us in the state of Texas until it gets to March when it's rodeo season. So if you are going to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, you got to get something for Texas Day. Charlie Hustle can get you all good to go. And as well as March Madness, there is going to be a Fan Fest pop-out if you do end up going over to Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament. So they're going to have you something there. And then also be on the lookout for a nice little event that will have a nice little giveaway of Charlie Hustle swag coming out next week. So be on the lookout for that. Each 10-12 Network podcast is doing a giveaway, and our turn's coming up, baby. And so you want to be on the look. You want to get you some free swag, some free merch. You know what I'm saying? And some nice little Red Raider gear. So be on the lookout for that. I personally might try to get up in on that, right? See if I can win something free. And so the fewer of y'all do it, the more likely I get to get some nice to improve my swag bag, if you will. So again, charliehustle.com, promo code 1012 Network for 15% off of all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. There was another game that Texas Tech played against an Arizona foe midweek. Just happened last night. And who would have thought that game would make me more pissed? Who would have thunk it? All right, who would have thunk it? So Arizona State, who's pretty bad. They have they have a very well-known head coach. I'm not going to call him legendary, but well-known head coach, and Bobby Hurley, part of the Hurley clan. His brother is known to call himself the best effing coach in the sport. Bobby is not his brother. Bobby's struggling at Arizona State as of right now. This is a team that is coming into this game was 12-11. There's NCAA tournament not on their sides. Bobby Hurley right now is just trying not to get fired. Is really his name. His name of the game. Started out hot in Arizona State, no pun intended, but has really struggled the last few years. And coming into this game, Arizona State was on a 3-game losing streak and had lost 4 of their last 5, as well as excuse me, as well as losing 8 of their last 10. Really, this is a team that was reeling. So the best thing that could happen to a team like Arizona State is come play Texas Tech on the road in Lubbock, and they were fearless. I mean, coming into this game, they were absolutely fearless and unconscious. Joe, they couldn't miss a damn shot. Couldn't miss a shot to save their lives from the opening tip for 40 minutes. For 45 minutes. Couldn't miss a shot. Annoying as hell.
Yeah, it was like they were shooting into a hula hoop. There's just, stuff coming off the backboard. There was, open looks. There was, bad communication on some of the Texas Tech parts. And then there's some shots that you're like, okay, I don't know what else you could do at that point in time. Defense was solid, and then they just put up some kind of Hail Mary, and it still went in. So, it's one of those games where it is kind of what it is. You just kind of weather that storm of them shooting the ball lights out, and you were able to weather that, which we'll talk about here shortly. But yeah, how it started off with, I was like, oh no, this is don't say we're going to Texas Tech this thing up at home, right? Like, there's no way. We just went up in the rankings by losing. We're not. Are we trying to run that back again to see if that's going to work? But ultimately came out good guys in double overtime. But yeah, the Arizona State start was red hot, red hot.
So Jeremy, funny enough, the funny thing about this game is that typically when an upset happens, the upsettee really takes the first blow. Right, really punches them in the mouth, really, and it's the better team that has to work their way back into the game. This is not what happened in this game. Texas Tech actually had he started out the game in the first half with a nice 8-point lead early on, then extended it back out to 7 at one point. With 6 minutes to go in the first half, Texas Tech had a 91.9% chance to win this game. It did not get back to that level until there was 0-0 on the scoreboard at the end of the game, right? 6 minutes ago in the first, it was a 91.9%, and then Arizona State said enough of that. And that's really when they started shooting lights out. Halftime, they're up by a point. Jeremy, what did you think of all this?
game was a slander against defense everywhere. I to seek so some context, I think the line was 16.5 for Texas Tech, and the over and under was like 140 or something like that. So by halftime, I thought, oh my God, there's no way either of those are going to be real. The Arizona State was hitting, and I was literally texting some buddies, and I was like, okay, Arizona State's basically floating around 50% both of threes and field. No way. There's no way that they're staying around that. I promise you. Arizona State's shooting out of their mind. They're on the road. There's no way. They're going to go in the locker room. They're going to cool off. They're going to think that they can come out and like replicate that. Not going to happen. Because the shots they were getting up in the first half, I was just like, man, those are crazy low percentage shots, and those are going in. These guys look like NBA players. And you know what? I bet they're really trying to channel something because they were on a 3-game losing streak. So I was like, they're all in. They're trying to pull every ounce of talent. They drank some Mike's secret stuff, and they're making it happen, right? And so down 1 at the half, I was like, this is some. Hey, don't tell me you have not watched Space Jam.
I have, but still, like, we talk about no Mike secret stuff.
So, yeah, man, this game was stupid, and this game was a cardiovascular. Like, I was on the edge of a heart attack this whole time. It was very uncomfortable because there was no defense. There was like, well, we'll get to that in a second, but it felt like we could not stop Arizona State at any capacity. And it was going to be who has the ball last. And we're both playing really fast offense. So I had no clue just how far this would go. And so this game was actually more stressful than the Houston game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Houston game also, once McCaslin and Toppin were ejected, it was, hey, whatever happens, happens. Like, we don't, you know what I'm saying? Just don't embarrass us. We could have lost by 10, not have been happy, right? So I will say, and we talked about this a little bit pre-pod, I pushed back a little bit as far as it being bad defense. Now, obviously, it wasn't great defense. Obviously, this wasn't something that you would hang your hat on and be like, yeah, that's that Red Raider defensive effort, right? There were definitely some lapses. You talked about miscommunication there, Joe. You could see it at times. But there were a lot of Arizona State was just making really tough shots, right? Like they were banking random threes in. There was one in the overtime period where he banked it from that side. From the side corner, which is just like, what the hell, right? Like they were just making unconscionable shots. So like sometimes there were times I saw hand up, hand in the face, he ain't making that. Oh, well, he just switched to 3. Like what the hell's going on here, right? At one point, Arizona State had their 3-point shooting over 50%, while their regular field goal shooting was under 50%, right? Similar to, I mentioned it before in our game where we were kind of in that same boat where we weren't making our 2s, we were hitting our 3s. They were even better in that aspect where they were okay from mid-range, but just killing it from 3 for some reason. And it's funny, shout out to my boy RC. He tweeted at halftime. He said, Arizona State, a team that shoots 35% from the field, is currently shooting 50% so far in this game. This is at halftime. And I stupidly said, I don't think that's sustainable. That ain't sustainable. We'll be fine. We're only down by a point. That ain't sustainable. Yeah. It was sustainable. It was sustainable. They kept it going in the second half. They kept it going. It was kind of crazy. Amir Ali went 4 for 5 in the game himself. Overall, Austin Mason and Adam Miller also combined 5 for 12. Now luckily one of their better players, Bashir Jihad, who was in foul trouble the whole game, he did struggle from the field in general. But other than that, I mean, everybody else kind of seemed to shoot lights out from this Arizona State side. So I think on the other side where we were bullied against Arizona, we had to be the bully in this game. I think that's where we were actually able to help. And the big bully on the block was JT Toppin. JT Toppin, they had to double him towards the end of the game because if he got the ball, he was putting it in the basket. Career high 41 points, had 15 rebounds in this game, 17 for 22 on the block. He seemed like he could do whatever he wanted in this game. And a guy like Jihad, the best thing that he could do was foul him, really. Like his Jihad was like, I don't know what to do. Only thing JT Toppin couldn't do, didn't have a great free throw shooting night, right? I'm shooting just a little over 50% from the field, or from free throw line, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, Toppin's not the best free throw shooter in the world, but overall, I mean, he just could do whatever he wanted. And you know what's even better than having just a Batman? Having Robin, D5, 27 points in this game. Right, Darren Williams throughout the game was just really consistent. And Darren Williams early in the season was the guy that we went to in clutch and said, hey, D5, carry us. And we haven't really seen that the last few games. There was a couple game winners that he missed, and he hasn't been that consistent. I don't know if his psyche was affected by some of the late game heroics, but we finally saw that again and making him smart decisions. And I think with McCaslin, you're like, yeah, we can get the ball in your hands because you're not going to do that step back, jack up three. You're going to go it and post up a smaller guard, get it down, and make a convenient shot. And that's what he was able to do, especially towards the end of the game. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on how some of these guys played?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but Darian, I think the consensus is that he's finally starting to feel normal again after his ankle injury. That like now he feels like he can kind of pivot and push in the way that he was more used to and more natural to his play style. And there still were some moments in this game against Arizona State where I was like, you know, I don't know why you tried to push into the to the bucket like that, or I don't know why you took that shot, but ultimately he ended the night with 27 points. So what the hell do I know? And shooting over 50% from the field. So I think JT Toppin, Darian Williams, no doubt, kind of leading the charge on this. Christian Anderson late in the game and in overtime was a big difference maker for us down the stretch, which was huge. Again, that composure, that willingness to kind of sell the body for defensive stands and things like that. And if you want to talk about defensive stands, here it was, Albert. Kerwin Walton making probably the defensive play of the game. Snagging that ball. I can't remember who passed it out, but snagging a ball in double overtime to reclaim possession and not even give Arizona State a chance. Huge. A disappointing performance for me. I mean, Elijah Hawkins kind of non-existent in this game. 36. I mean, a lot of facilitation, but at the same time, he didn't look like we've been used to seeing him, but we can talk about that in a second because I think Toppin plays more. Elijah Hawkins doesn't have to play as much. Chance McMillan, though, pretty much non-existent in the first half and most of the second, but came alive late to get us to overtime, which was huge. So the people that were even absent stepped up at the right time, and that felt nice. We just got to talk a little bit about defense.
Well, to me, there's two people that really were quiet for a large part of the first half of the game and came on when we needed them the most. And you mentioned one of them in Chance McMillan, and another one that has been growing up. And I got to give credit to Joe. Because he was the first one that really was like, man, y'all don't even know about this freshman. Like, y'all think you know about this freshman, y'all don't even know about this freshman. And Christian Anderson, a guy that's been getting better and better and better and really growing up in front of us. This game, you saw the maturity. And they talked about it on the broadcast. They were like, man, this Roy Hibbert was like, oh, I've never seen a freshman guard like this play like this. This is crazy.
He's terrible.
But Christian Anderson he was just, and it wasn't even, you look at the stat sheet and you didn't say 10 points, 5 assists. He didn't do much. He was doing all the little things, right? He was doing all the little things. He was getting the key steal. He was making that key play, that key pass, right? Making the key bucket when we needed it, especially in that overtime period. So both McMillan and CA really caught on late when we needed it the most there, Joe.
Absolutely. I don't remember. Whenever I brought up CA, it was like before the season had even started, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's babyface assassin, man. Like, there's nothing phases this kid. He shows no emotion, good, bad, the other. He just plays his game. And he's going to be a monster. Like this is going to be scary how good this kid ultimately goes, just based on trajectory and how he's been from the start of this season to where he's at now, getting playing time over a fifth-year senior and Elijah Hawkins, even though he had some kind of foul trouble there at the end. But Coach McCaslin trusting him to do what he needs to do in the overtime period. He got that big steal there late and gave it to Kerwin, and Freeman, I don't know, had a pogo stick up his ass or something and went and blocked that shot. But it was just absolutely crazy what Christian Anderson was able to do at that point in time. I mean, you can't put, there's just no words to put for it. I mean, you could say phenomenal, you could say remarkable, the best freshman at Tech in the last decade. You could say all of these different things. And I think you have, there's some valid points to be made that, he's probably one of the better freshmen that has ever come through this university in the last decade. And that includes a Jemias Ramsey coming over here. And I said that he was going to be more productive than him just off from the offset. He's just that damn good, man. And he gets better every time. He learns something, a new trick, especially on the defensive side. Being in the Big 12 isn't too big of a moment for him. And then you also have it for me and from my perspective, and I've always gassed Kerwin up this year as well, but he came on, and whenever he was able to drive and make some baskets around, in the paint, if Kerwin actually started doing that more often, you know how even more deadly this team would be? Like, it would be absolutely nuts. And all he needs to see is a shot or two go down, and all of a sudden he becomes this lethal sniper from beyond the arc. It's just these guys, just feed off of certain different types of things that are happening in the game. Christian Anderson's going to be a stud. We all see it. We're all watching it happen in real time. Kerwin's being Kerwin. And I think if Kerwin or somebody from the supporting cast is doing a little bit more than what they normally do, this team is going to be very difficult to beat down the road.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So I will say, Jeremy, I do have a question for you. When in this game, whenever Adam Miller made that shot to give Arizona a 2-point lead with 10 seconds to go, did you turn your TV off? Go start cooking dinner, saying like, well, there it is. What were your thoughts there?
What shot was that?
That was the shot to put them up 90-88 with 10 seconds to go.
That wasn't the corner bank, was it?
No, that wasn't the corner bank.
I was gonna make a comparison to Neymar hitting that corner goal on the World Cup a couple of times back. That was insane. No, I didn't. I was disappointed. Like, I was like,
you had confidence we would win down 2? I did. Let me tell you something. I ain't gonna lie to you. I did not. I was like, well,
I didn't have confidence, but I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I lost all confidence the moment Kerwin missed the layup. And I was like, this effing game. And then Chance McMillan out of nowhere rising up to meet the challenge. But taking it to the rack like that and laying it up, and I was like, this is going to be one of those disappointing losses where it should have went in, but we just didn't take care of business. And then I got to listen to Arizona State's players jubilate all over our court, and it almost was that. It was almost it. If you don't know what jubilate is, don't be upset. But it almost was that. So, but because I the whole game was like that, it was just so back and forth that at the point, and we started coming semi-alive at the end, that even though we made that bucket, I was like, there's still some time left they left a little too much time for us.
I'm glad that y'all are both very optimistic. I thought the game was over. And I was like, we ain't gonna, I've seen this story before.
Did you turn it off?
I didn't turn it off. I watched, but I was like, I've seen this story before. Well, it was because, mind you, the whole time I'm watching this game, I do in my head, I'm like, we're not losing this to Arizona State. I didn't doubt we would win until we were down 2 with 10 seconds to go. That was the first time I doubted. That was the whole game. I'm like, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. Because the thing about that game, it's weird because we were actually down for a lot of the second half, right? But the whole time we looked like the better team. They were just making tough shots. But the whole time I'm like, we're still the better team. We look like the better team. And typically, the better team still prevails, right? Like a lot of times when upsets happen, the better team just doesn't look like the better team for those 40 minutes. This is one of those games where the better team looked like the better team. We were outplaying Arizona State. They just were making random shots. So I was confident we would win up until that Miller bucket. And I was like, well, there it is.
You know why I didn't turn off the TV when that happened? Because Hurley called a timeout. Calls a timeout. He has a chance to draw up a play. There's some subbing going on there. But, I mean, we've talked about it in the past, coaching moves on, hey, should I burn a timeout here or should I just let it play out? And, I think this is something that kind of fell into the favor of Texas Tech by him calling that timeout, giving us a chance to make a play. And then Elijah Hawkins, doing what he did. There's no I don't know how many point guards there are that could keep up with him in the open court. And for him to have that mismatch whenever he drove to the lane kind of just put a wrench in their little chain that they had going there. And Adam Miller, just didn't block out Chance McMillan. McMillan was able to get a clean shot up, even though it bounced around. But I think that timeout ultimately hurt this Arizona State team.
A great point there with that timeout. Like you said, we've talked about it. Coach, you got to stop doing it, but I'm glad Hurley did it on this one. Overtime was a bit more of a crapshoot. Arizona State went up 4 multiple times in overtime. Tech was able to come back both times and really tie it up there in the end. And then they were tied up there to go to double overtime. And in double overtime, that was one where it was almost like Tech was like, we're not. We got to go home. It's enough of this nonsense. Let's slam the door. CA made smart decisions. Hawk was able to make a couple of nice passes. D5, that's that moment where D5 kind of just took over and was able to do what he needs to do. Darren Williams there, and we were able to survive and win this game. Any other thoughts in regards to this game here, Joe?
No, just, a very, very hot team shooting night, and, you weathered the storm. And it, first team to 100 wins. Everybody was tweeting that. Was like first team to 100 wins. Tech made it to 100 first and ultimately came out with that W. But, overall, I think you're happy in certain spots and, some other spots need some work. But a win's a win, 10-3.
Just survive. I tweeted it, man. Just survive. This is one of those games where, like, you don't. I'm not going to say burn the tape because you need to watch the tape. You need to watch some of that tape and see some of the defensive errors that you made. But just survive. Just get the W. It's the Big 12. It's the second toughest conference in the country. So just get the W and move on, right? And so, just survive. Jeremy, your thoughts on this game?
Survive in advance, except it's not the tournament, but it feels like it. And I had a tweet drafted up in the likelihood that we would have lost. About 4 minutes left to go. I was like, let me just put this up there with how I'm feeling now, and if it sticks, it sticks.
He didn't believe. He said he believed. He didn't believe.
When you're a real social media expert like I am, you always have a tweet for winning and a tweet for losing. So
I had only queued up the tweet for winning. So
you're a real fan.
Your candle one,
real fan.
Yeah, buddy. Let me tell you, from my days at Viva, you got to be ready. So this isn't. This is a crazy game, and it is the anomaly because I don't see us dropping 100 points again the rest of this season. But it was a good game because when you needed it the most, this guy stepped up and made an improbable victory a victory. And so I think that was a huge win for the team. Glad it's over, right? I feel bad for Arizona. 3-10 in conference. Arizona State's the sneakiest 12-12 team in the country. But just glad that one's over because we got a lot more basketball left, and I just want to get those demons out of the closet and then move on to the next one.
Well, so a lot more basketball left, Joe, and we were talking about in the chat earlier today as far as Texas Tech right now third in the conference, 2 games back from first place Houston, which they beat, 1 game back from second place Arizona, which they split the series. But if we look at those those two competitors in front of us, they have tougher schedules than we do, right? Both of them play at least 3 ranked opponents, while we only play 2, I believe. And not only just looking at it ranked aspect of it, the teams we're playing coming up are teams that, frankly, are not going to be standing around when March comes, right? Like, these are teams that, for the most part, are just fighting to live another day, and that includes the team we're playing next in Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State right now is the 3rd worst team in the conference, right? 4-9 in conference right now, hovering around that 500 mark for the year. They're just not a good team. TCU is a team that is on the wrong end of the bubble. They're a team that have been struggling this year. We have them afterwards as well, right? Like, this is the schedule. It really does appease us. We have Arizona State again. And now, mind you, I know some people may be saying that, oh, well, do we really want to play Arizona State again? They pushed the double overtime in Lubbock. Yeah, I do. I'd like to play Arizona State again. I can't imagine that they would shoot the way they shot again. And so I think and then you get the opportunity, and I wish we got to play this team more often. I'm sure everybody wishes they got to play this team more often. But a team in Colorado that is 0-13 in the conference, we get to finish our season with them. So there is definitely the Big 12 championship is still right in front of us. Now, that being said, I picked Houston to win at the beginning of the year. I still think Houston's going to win it, just simply because they only have 1 loss. They're 2 games ahead of us. We need them to lose twice and us to win out to even have a shot, or some variation of that. But the opportunity is there. I mean, it's the Big 12. Let's not act like it's impossible for a team like Houston to slip up a couple times, or a team like Arizona to slip up a couple times. So definitely an opportunity there, Joe.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not like we are finishing off the year with like an Alabama kind of schedule. If you've seen that schedule where they have to play Auburn twice, Tennessee, Missouri, Florida, Mississippi State to close out their conference season. I mean, I would rather have what we have, and going up against Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, Colorado, and then Arizona State again, only facing 2 more ranked teams, that in being Houston coming to Lubbock and then going on the road to Kansas, at that juncture. But Kansas isn't just quite Kansas this year, as we've all seen. So this is just one of those deals. I mean, the opportunity's there, so just don't let it slip in front of you. And you got to take it game by game. Oklahoma State kept it close here in Lubbock. We only won that game by 10. It wasn't a beatdown. So I mean, take these guys seriously, even though on paper we're a better basketball team than them. You can't just go into Stillwater and just think that they're going to lay down or roll over, because that's one of those games that Texas Tech would lose in that kind of situation. So just got to take it game by game, toughest team mentality, take it on the road, and continue what you've done on the road for a majority of the season, and just handle business.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that Oklahoma State is still crying off of their loss to TCU, because that's rough, man. Did y'all see that? That was a game they had in hand, ready to win, ready to ride out of Fort Worth and all this other stuff. And TCU had a Christian Laettner scenario happen that went right to, just insane. And so that's their loss there. For Oklahoma State, I do think Oklahoma State's a little bit better than their record is, right? I think they've been in some close games. That TCU game is one. They also did, more handily beat Arizona State right before that. And even some of their losses, I mean, they, losing to Houston by single digits, losing to us, right? And they were a tough team when they played us last time. If you remember the last time Tech and Oklahoma State played, that was a game that was close until it wasn't. Right. But even towards the end of the game, even though we kept them at one point, we had an 18-point lead in this game with about 5 minutes to go. Oklahoma State cut it to 3. Right. So this is a team that's not necessarily going to go away. They're going to fight. They have their new coach and they're bought in. They're just not very talented right now. But I got to imagine Robert Jennings, who didn't have a great game in the first matchup, is going to want to get back in this one, as well as certain guys like Osmane and Bryce Thompson as well.
Yeah, I would think so. So it's just nothing that you would need to take lightly on the road, especially in Stillwater. Just go over there, treat it like, hey, this is the Big 12 championship. This is how the mentality that needs to be over there. And that's what I love about this coaching staff. I think this is, one of those games that Coach McCaslin and company will have the team ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say this weekend in the Big 12, so Texas Tech does play Oklahoma State in Stillwater. It is much cheaper to drive out to Stillwater and get a ticket to that game than go to any other Lubbock game. So if you want to go ahead and do that, let's take over the GIA. But another big game happening this weekend in the Big 12 is that the top 2 teams in the conference, 6th ranked Houston at 13th ranked Arizona. And let me tell you something, let's go Wildcats, right? We need that Houston slip up so we can be right there to get us an opportunity to potentially win the Big 12. So in Arizona, I think that home court advantage is definitely going to – you mentioned the McHale earlier, like seeing that McHale Memorial Center jumping against 6th ranked Houston. I want to see it. I want to see a potential upset here to give Tech that opportunity. Should be a good one. Unfortunately, it'll be the second biggest game of the year in college basketball because the Iron Bowl, Auburn versus Alabama, shockingly, the 2 best teams in college basketball in the state of Alabama. And so it's got to hurt. Somebody I work with, she big Auburn fan. And mind you, I do think, full transparency, I do think Auburn's the best team in college basketball. I've thought this ever since they were fighting each other on a plane and then went and whooped up on Houston with like 3 guys suspended. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's the best team in basketball. But it would also be hilarious for like them being the best team in college basketball to still lose to Alabama. Like you can't get away from them, Yeah. So that would just be funny in general. Other big games in the Big 12 this weekend. Cincinnati, a pretty decent team, looking again to get another nice win to help their NCAA tournament resume as they go on the road to the Hilton. 10th ranked Iowa State should be a good one. Last but not least, West Virginia at Baylor, 2 potential tournament teams battling it out and playing each other there on ESPN2. So good matchups overall. And Texas Tech our next 2 games are against the 2 teams that played each other to that thrilling finish. First against Oklahoma State and then at TCU, right? So 2 road games against, basketball teams. Let's take over both. That's how I look at it. Joe, anything you want to say to the people?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, 2 very winnable games on the road, Oklahoma State and TCU, and you like where you're at. That puts you at 12-3, coming in for 2 straight home games against West Virginia and Houston. So take it game by game, and get the job done. So other than that, also be on lookout for baseball stuff. I believe they start opening series tomorrow morning in a doubleheader against North Carolina. Our softball team is down in Austin, going to be playing the Longhorns, ranked number 1 in the nation. So, maybe we get some get back against the Longhorns and say, hey, look, we're here now. So a lot of stuff going on this weekend, Tech basketball, Tech softball, men's baseball as well. So fun-filled weekend.
Speaking of number 1 in the nation, women's track, number 1 in the nation for the first time in program history. Pretty awesome there for the track team. That's been, listen, a buddy of mine was like #track school. We've been a track school. That's been our best sport. All right. Like it's great to go to national championship in basketball. It's great to go to the College World Series in baseball. It's great to be above average in football for once. But track is where we have really always excelled. So absolutely number 1 team. The men is 4th in the country too. So not to be outdone, the men are right there also. But softball having an incredible year as well. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I'm this softball savant, but it's always great to see a Red Raider team ball out and do well. Jeremy, I don't think there's any need to talk about the Red Raider team that is on a 5-game losing streak. But shout out to Sedona Prince that likes to beat up on her significant other and then beat up on the Lady Raiders. So that's back to back. I think that happened like the next day. So
well, that's crazy because she didn't get the women to sign NDAs after she beat on them. Not even a chuckle, Jeremy. Damn, I tried so hard.
That's great. That's great. He ain't tapped in. He don't know. He is not tapped in. You read up on it. You'll laugh here in about an hour. Anything else you want to say to the people, Jeremy?
No, man. Joe wraps it up real nicely. A lot of cool Texas Tech sports going on. Softball probably being the biggest headliner. I think there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of softball fans watching that one. And it'll give us a really good litmus test on, how good this Glasgow. I mean, you're 5-1. We moved up in the rankings, so it's going to be really interesting to see how we take on a Texas team that has probably no regard for us as a program. So it's a really cool opportunity to go hit them in the mouth. I'm really excited for that one.
Please Google Sedona Prince if you don't know what happened there, because that joke is hilarious. That joke is gold. Okay. That's a good one. Lord Jesus, it's a good one. All right. Yeah, and don't look up the Lady Raiders record. That's all I will say. Don't look up that basketball team's record. Not great. We're praying for a savior. And that savior's name is Leah Chavez. God, please. So, for the Raider expert and comedian that is Joe Lopez and the People's Champ Jeremy Gillen, this is your boy Albie Shore, and you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 network. As always, stay erect, people.